On the show today we have the Spurs Poet, Davie Elder, Rob White, author and son of Spurs legend John White, as well as Simon, Sam, and myself. Hotspur America is next.
And naturally, I'm a Tottenham man, obviously. I can reflect back to being a player with and manager of some of the finest players that have ever been in the game.
The place is fantastic, the tradition of this club.
To be the manager of 3 cup-winning teams here, I'm so lucky, it's untrue.
Hotspur America podcast airing every week during the English Premier League season.
What a glory, glory night at White Hart Lane. This great and historic football club. Joyful night down the Tottenham High Road.
Hotspur America, the original US-based podcast dedicated solely to Tottenham Hotspur Football Club.
Gascoigne going to have a crack? He is, you know. Oh, I say! Schoolboy's own stuff.
I hate Arsenal, just hate them.
Oh, what a goal! Unbelievable! Wow, this is incredible.
We're the Yids in America.
Dukes is there to tap in. What a fantastic run! He scored! And it's turned home, Eric Dyer.
This is your Hotspur America. Spurs are going back to Wembley. We have an amazing show for you today. There is a ton to talk about. Obviously, the big win against Sheffield midweek. Draw, actually, but on aggregate, the 3-2 win. Eriksen saving our bacon once again. A 3-0 smashing yesterday of West Brom. And this is also your Hotspur America North London Derby preview show, everybody! That's what I'm talking about. I'm ready for this. Episode 23 of the Hotspur America podcast. With me this week are my 2 co-hosts, Sam and Simon. Chaps, how are you this fine morning?
Doing quite well. A little tired. I've already had like almost 5 hours of football because I hadn't watched the Sheffield match and wanted to watch yesterday's again. But I'm doing well.
Nice. Simon?
I'm all caught up and I'm ready, mate.
You're ready, mate. Yeah, good. We also have with us the Spurs Poet, Davie Elder. Davie, thank you for being on with us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure, guys. Thanks for inviting me on.
Great.
Really looking forward to it.
We are too. We have been all week. Also on the show today is a professional photographer and co-author of The Ghost in Search of My Father, the Football Legend, that he wrote with Julie Welch in 2011. Please, everyone, welcome to the show, Mr. Rob White.
Yeah, hi there. How are you?
Doing well, Rob.
Good.
Glad to have you on, buddy.
Yeah,
both of you.
Pleasure to be here, by the way. Sorry.
It's okay. And I'm Ken, American Spurs Fanatic podcast host and cider lover, as everyone is learning really quick.
No cider this week, right, mate?
No, you know what?
No cider for breakfast?
No, 9 a.m. No cider for me yet. Super Bowl Sunday, though, so maybe later.
I think we should probably do a little segment on Super Bowl Sunday, because I know it's a huge deal in the UK with a lot of people, based on Twitter and speaking with folks.
Sweet.
Obviously over here it's a really big deal. I can't stand it. I don't like throw ball. I'll watch it just for the entertainment value if there's going to be any, but it'd be interesting to get everyone's opinion before we sign off later.
Yeah, I watch for the commercials. I really don't care anymore.
I watch for the naked ladies.
There you go.
They never show up.
No, but there's a Carl's Jr. ad that's supposed to air.
Oh,
yeah.
They're ready.
Yeah. That's definitely going to be worth watching the Super Bowl alone for.
We're getting ready to talk about Spurs, the League Cup final at Wembley, West Brom, the Derby, all that. Simon, it's kind of a staple question that we're throwing out there for all of our guests that come on, especially from that side of the world. So, Simon, if you would, please do us the honors.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago, you all know we had Julie Welch and Daniel Wynn on, and one of the leading questions I asked is the perception of fans in America. There are enough transplants and expats over here, myself included, and I know a bunch, and I don't know that many English born and bred Spurs supporters that are now over here. So most of the people I associate with Dallas Spurs have followed the club for a number of years for whatever reason, or in many instances have just started following the Premier League because of the exposure that it gets over here. So the question I pitched to those guys is, what is the perception, in particular American fans? I know, with the trust, supporters clubs come up quite often as the club catering to those folks instead of the base, and that does bristle a lot of people. But in both of you guys' opinions, what do you think of this new fan, this global fan, and how they're perceived by folks back in the UK. So, Davie, why don't you answer that one first, mate?
I take the viewpoint from, obviously I'm from Northern Ireland, and there's about 15 or 16 supporters groups in this country. So to see the dedication that stateside supporters have, there's you guys are up at the pub at 6 o'clock in the morning to watch games. I welcome it with warm, open arms. I appreciate how difficult it is not being from England to try and get to see games, to try and travel to games. So, I also feel that the dedication that you guys are showing probably beats what, Northern Ireland supporters do, or what, Norwegian or Swedish, because you are up at silly o'clock to go and watch games. So, I think it's fantastic, and the numbers, which you can see it physically growing, of a fan base over in America. So I think it's fantastic, and I have no problem with it, and never will. We're all supporting the same club, we're all supporting the shirt, and that's all that matters at the end of the day. It's the cockerel on the shirt, and it's White Hart Lane. That's it.
So, Davie, how often do you get to go back?
Well, the past, for about 6 or 7 years, I was doing at least 15 trips a season.
Wow.
Which is pretty much the price of 4 season tickets.
Wow.
Yeah, heavens.
A season. So, it is quite expensive, but I try and get there as much as possible, and obviously now as I've got older and the kids have came, it's just a wee bit more difficult to try and make as many trips.
Davie, where are you? Are you in Belfast?
Yeah, just outside of it, yeah.
Wow. So how did you become Spurs?
I'm not originally from Belfast. The place that I'm from, there's literally a population of 200, and it's a country village, which, whenever I was growing up, was completely dominated by Liverpool, by Manchester United. But from the age of 3, I was a Spurs fan, and I don't know why, because there was nobody in my family was Tottenham. There was nobody from the estate was Tottenham. My mum tells a story about how I stamped my feet in anger because I couldn't get the Aussie's Dream on vinyl. So I think Aussie and Chaz and Dave have a lot to do with it, but I've always been Spurs, and as I always say, it's kind of poetic. I didn't choose Tottenham chose me.
Yeah. That's very apropos, because that's how I feel about this whole process. When I decided to jump on the EPL tidal wave that is sweeping this country, it's well documented. I started watching Italian football, and I have been for a long time, because that's my heritage and lineage on my mother's side, and it's something that I've become very wrapped around and grown with. Having that kind of semblance, that side of my family has always been much more a part of me growing up than on my dad's side, who's English, which is where I get my last name from. But as I've gotten into this, it was a year-long, 18-month-long process for me to choose a team. So once I got to the point where I've narrowed it down to, I'm not going to be a front runner, I don't jump on bandwagons, that's not who I am. I want a team that's just like all the other teams that I root for. It's kind of like when you go to the puppy mill to get a new puppy, and then there's one that just runs up to you and they choose you. It was the same exact thing with Spurs for me. And I think for every American supporter, that's the way that it should be. You should allow the team to choose you, not just say, well, I'm going to go root for City because I like, sky blue uniforms, or whatever the case may be for each individual person. United is a household name, even over here, and has been for a very long time. You'll see United, track jackets and kit tops and stuff running around out in public, and people just do it because it's on sale in a local, sporting shop right next to the Chelsea kit, and they'll buy those type of things. You don't see just random Tottenham wear out and about in the shops around here. So you have to get online. You have to go find that thing. But I can tell you 2 years later, after making that decision, meeting the people that I've met, it is an extended family for me. These people, the 100 or so that will show up to this derby match next week in that pub at 6:45 in the morning, it's an extended family for me. Each one of those people is special. The two gentlemen that I do this show with are special to me, and it's all an extension of the club. So it's always interesting to me to hear everybody's perspective on why they chose Spurs, no matter where they are in the world. But from a small village of 200 or a giant metroplex that we live in here, it all ends up being the same story, really, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. It's interesting you talk about kits and helping kids make their decisions. There's a football shop probably 3 miles up the road from me. That in itself is a rarity and shows how the game has grown in the last probably 10 to 15 years, that there's a dedicated football shop. It's not a sports shop that sells all other sporting goods. It just sells stuff for the sport. Granted, this part of North Dallas has a lot of activity with youth soccer and FC Dallas's academy and stuff, but every time I go in there, and I know the owner well because Spencer's grown up going in there buying stuff over the years, with particularly boots, but I'll look up at all the replica kits, and it's primarily Adidas and Nike. And it may be our fault for sticking with Puma and now Under Armour for a while, but you would think Under Armour would be in there, being an American company, but they're not. So it's Chelsea, it's Arsenal, it's United, and then the big European clubs, because obviously over here it's not just about the English Premier League. So that's an interesting perspective based on what you just said, Ken.
Yeah. Go ahead, Sam.
So, Rob, roughly the same question. What's your perspective of how the sport has grown, and particularly in this country, and fans over here, and what we're like?
I think it's, excuse me, I agree with Davie actually, and I was thinking back on this. 1989, 1990, for 18 months I lived in Sydney, and that was pre-Sky, pre-EPL, but you'd still get the matches. Some matches were screened, so you have to get up at 3 or 4 in the morning or 2 in the morning to go and watch a game at 3. So I sort of know what how much more work really you guys have to put into supporting the club, and that's not wanting to sound patronising. It's just a sheer fact. I live 20 minutes away from the ground, and believe you me, there are days where I think, do I really want to go to this game?
And I'd be giving my left leg to be doing that.
Exactly, and like Davie said, there are guys, I've met guys that have driven for 24 hours from Norway, or, for instance, last season, I'm friendly with a group of Scott Spurs, FC Scott Spurs supporters club, and they came down for the West Ham, I shouldn't talk about it, one of the West Ham games where we got beat. And I met them afterwards for a quick drink in the pub. And, I had to go home and face whatever I was facing at home, kick the cat or whatever. These guys have got to drive 6 or 7 miles to Edinburgh, and then 6 or 7 hours to Edinburgh, and then another hour to Perth. So these guys go through quite a lot, and I'm digressing, but so far as supporters clubs throughout the world, and particularly in the States, I think it's a brilliant thing. I think it's something that obviously the club, from a cynical business point of view, they value it, and what club wouldn't? But I think I think it's really great to just to have have that option if you're travelling or whatever, to think, there's a group of Spurs fans that I could hook up with here. So yeah, I think it's a brilliant thing. I think it's let's hope it grows and grows. Yeah. And I can see how you say about the club picking you. I like to think, as I think we're special as a club, just as a football club. So I think it's quite an attractive thing. I know people that have just chosen it because it's a hot